Hi, ladies. Welcome to another episode of the Femalepreneur Coach podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Barr. I am trying to multitask today and leverage some of my time by creating an IGTV and a podcast episode at the same time. So bear with me because this may go horribly wrong, but hopefully it will be fine. So I really wanted to talk to you today about something that's super exciting, and it's about the process and the theory of stacking successes and how you can stay motivated and consistent in your business for the long haul. And it's something that I see happens all the time where women really do fall down. So maybe you can resonate with this. You might have invested in a program or even working with a coach, and you have gone all in, you've made the symbolic gesture, you've had that transaction in terms of money, feel super motivated. The trust of the person that sold you the program has transferred to you. So there's an element of feeling like it's possible to get the results that it is that you want. But then after a few weeks, maybe if you're not necessarily seeing immediate quick wins or results, the motivation starts to dwindle and your confidence starts to slip, and then you end up essentially in a downward spiral. And the initial success that you had at the beginning and motivation and all the vibes suddenly start to dissipate, and then you start to internalize and you think it's me and da 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 da. And I wanted to kind of explain today, because I see that happen so often, particularly when people come and work with me. It's because that they've actually invested in programs previously, they haven't seen any results, and they want to see another approach and another way in order to get that outcome. And the reason I love them coming to me is because I can see straight away why they haven't had that success and why they may have had some initial quick wins, but how things have dissipated over time. So I'm super excited to have you here and really dive into this today. So like I said, what happens initially at the beginning of somebody starting a program is that the trust has transferred. That motivation, that vision, that energy of the person that sold them into the program has really transferred to them, and it's infectious. This has happened to me many times, even in my own entrepreneurial journey, where I have had a vision that is so strong and so magnetic to my staff and my customers and the people that are working around me, that they've really bought into that and they are so bloody excited. They're there straight away, they're with me right alongside me. And then literally a few weeks in of actually implementing and executing that vision and that plan, suddenly, I'd go back into the shop and the standards aren't as good. People aren't kind of as motivated. And I used to get super frustrated and I'd be like, I don't understand. But actually what I realized was that, like I said, that motivation, that desire, that vision, that connection had transferred to them temporarily, but ultimately they weren't bought in. They didn't care. And when I then left that situation, obviously they weren't going to continue with the same energy and motivate and momentum that I had created. And it meant then that I had to be in that business all the time, essentially pushing them, and who wants to be in push energy in business? Never. So now obviously I've taken those learnings, and along with everything else that I know from the modalities that I use to work with my clients at the deepest level, doing the deep dive mindset work, I can see how this is actually, set up to fail initially. So I wanted to kind of take you on a bit of a journey with a client that I had to do this work with, but typically this is the kind of work that I do with every client. And essentially it is stacking successes. So when somebody comes to me initially, they will say, I want a 10K month. I want to create a business that gives me ultimate time freedom, that gives me maximum opportunities to earn money, even though they may have not necessarily had that before. Typically, they've never had it before. Either they've never hit that financial milestone, or not in the context in which they're looking to move forwards with, or not in the way that they want to create it now. So it's a brand new experience, right? So they might have had, for some reason, I get a lot of women that want to move into the coaching space that have had a business previously, whether it's property, whether it's different service-based industries, that are now looking to leverage their time and energy, because obviously I'm the queen of leverage, right? So that makes sense that they would come to me, and they want to move into the coaching role and really maximize the opportunities to leverage their time, their energy, their expertise in a service-based role as coach. So, which is super exciting, because obviously they've seen around what is possible in terms of earning potential. Maybe they've been following other coaches that are celebrating 100K months, £1 million months, it happens. So they've come to me with that goal in mind. I want to hit a 10K month, even though they've never done it before. And they've got absolutely no idea how they're going to get there. You know, there's absolutely nothing that we can use to leverage in order to build momentum from the offset. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen up front in terms of, and even I found this when moving into the coaching space. I'd been a very successful entrepreneur. 6 figures was nothing to me, but it's a very different mindset from having physical success in business where you are essentially you have a business, a product, a service to sell. When you then move into the coaching space and now suddenly you're the brand, you're the service, you're the asset, you're the thing that needs to be sold, it's a whole different mindset shift. It's much harder to sell yourself than a product that you can essentially hide behind. And that's what I'd done. So coming into then being a coach and selling myself, it was a whole shift that needed to happen. And that's kind of the work that I do with my clients. So a lot of the time, yes, there'll be strategy. So there'll be, as a coach, I'm constantly weighing up. It's almost like if you've seen that GIF where there's the person with all the numbers where they're like, that's my mind in any moment as a coach, because there'll be the strategy element where it's okay, so we need to get some quick wins off the board. We need to get some foundations set in place. We need to get a clear offer. We need to get a clear sense of their personal brand and their USP, why them, why now, why this offer. So there's lots of strategic things that I need to be kind of factoring in, but also I'm working with the woman behind the business. So it's okay, well, I know straight away we're going to get resistance to this goal because they've never done it before. So you have all of that element in terms of probability and limiting beliefs, societal conditioning that may be holding them back from hitting that goal anyway. But then we've also got the actual the motivation and how we actually get them to take those actions that feel really overwhelming at the beginning, because again, it's all fear of the unknown. We've never done it before. We don't know if it's safe. So you've got the unconscious part of your brain, which is essentially, allowing you've got the motivation, you've got the desire, you've got the goal, which is having the foot on gas, but you've also got your unconscious brain, you've got societal conditioning, limiting beliefs, you've got the fear of, I don't even know how the hell I'm going to do this in the first place, that's essentially got the break. So you've got to try and balance that, and it's a really careful balance at the beginning stages. So one thing that I love to do is obviously get quick wins out the gate. So when I work with somebody, it's always in that longer term container. I don't believe in promising a sustainable outcome in a short container. 3 months, I used to do that at the beginning, and I realized very quickly that actually we can get those quick wins, we can get that transfer of trust and motivation, but actually I might have delivered an outcome, and in for me as a coach, yeah, tick that box, we're good. But actually for the woman who then needs to carry that forwards, that's where they're going to fall at that next level of hurdle, because not only are they not going to be able to have the practical strategy and skills to then replicate the success that they've created, because they don't necessarily have the awareness of all of the stuff that goes, the moving parts that I'm factoring in as the coach behind the scenes. But also, when I then suddenly exit left out of the process, how are they going to self-regulate, self-motivate, and continue to strive to that next level of success when they haven't got the mindset support to do it? So, but equally, we need to know that it's possible, right? So they've got to see some quick wins. We've got to start getting and increasing the level of probability to that goal. So we've got to get some quick wins. So when we first start working together, it's okay, what does the first little stage look like? What does the first kind of couple of months, whilst I'm also getting them to take inspired, bold action that they've never done before strategically, how do I also start to build the level of trust in themselves that even what they want, that big, bold, audacious goal, is even possible? And it's factoring in some quick wins. But this is essentially what I did with my client. So for her, 10K months is possible. She'd already created that in her other business. It's actually a minor, really. She's done that many times because she had the kind of business that had that potential in it. But obviously, stepping into that coaching role and being the face of that business and being responsible now to the results of other people, it's a whole new vibe and mindset shift that needed to happen. So what I essentially had to do was start to identify, what would those quick wins look like? How do we actually create a ladder of probability towards her goal? How do we break that down so it doesn't feel overwhelming? And essentially, when we lack motivation towards a task, there'll be two elements to it. There'll be one element that is either it feels too hard or it feels too easy. And a lot of people say to me, oh wow, you're so motivated, like you've got 5 kids, you've got and you've got success, and you've got every reason to not necessarily want any more than you've got. How do you keep that party going? Like, how do you keep that motivation going? And it's because I'm always pushing the boundaries of what feels safe and easy for me. I've learned very quickly that in order to grow, in order to move on to your next level of success, you've got to and live a life where you are constantly experiencing new opportunities, new growth, new amazingness. You've got to start to reframe what feeling uncomfortable means for you. So I've got comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. And I know that if actually things are too easy for me, it actually means that I'm not pushing myself. I've learned to live at my edges of what feels possible. You know, if I go into a room where I feel like the most accomplished person in there, unless I'm in that room to teach, why am I even in that room? There's no growth for me. There's no expansion. There's no opportunity to learn or be more than I can be. So it becomes a detractor. But yet a lot of women feel safe in that environment where they are the biggest fish in the smallest pond, and actually that's at a detriment to your growth. So if you're in that environment right now where you know that you're kind of coasting, things are easy, you're really doing yourself a disservice, because ultimately your mindset and your motivation checks out, because like it's too easy. So I'm no longer inspired or motivated to hit the next thing. And eventually, we know, like money, you know, the energy starts to dissipate, and that's when we lose traction in something that actually, you know, used to feel exciting and expansive before, and actually was quite easy to maintain. Now suddenly you've got to work a bit harder, but you don't want to, because you're only working harder to sustain what you've currently got. There's no growth there. It doesn't feel exciting. But equally, if you've got the other end of the spectrum where you are trying to create £1 million year and yet you've never had a 10k month, the ladder of probability against that goal is so skewed and it feels so impossible that you're not even going to take any action towards that, because your brain is already mentally checked out and it's like, okay bitch, like rightio. And you might have the first bit where, like I say, your trust is transferred and your energy is transferred from somebody else, a coach that sold you into a program where it's like, you can make 100k in your pants, I promise, it's so easy. And you're getting in there and you're like, actually this feels a little bit hard. Actually, I'm looking around and looking at the amount of work that in my mind I've computed is going to take to hit that goal, when I've not done any of these things before. Actually, I'm out. Like, it's almost too much. I'm not motivated now because it's just ridiculous. It's going to be overwhelming. So we don't even start the action taken to even create any momentum or energy in our business. But when you do start getting that momentum, that's when the power of leverage then comes in, and you can start to use that energy to create more and more results. And that's essentially what we did for my client, right? Once we got over the first hurdle, the mindset shifts that needed to happen for her to really embody that next level self and see herself and recognize herself as an authority, we started to, you know, create some achievable milestone goals and get the first client in. Once we got over that hurdle, amazing, that was our quick win tick. She could start to see, actually, if I've already done this work and I've started to embody it, and now people are coming to me because they see me as that authority, and I've already got one person out the gate, actually the probability of getting another person is actually quite likely. And that's exactly what she did. She got the next person, and then the third person was easy because we found smart ways to leverage the energy of that person that signed up. You know, obviously I've got my masterclass in series starting from April, and there's loads of things that I can share with you strategically around how you can leverage, you know, that first quick win, that second win, that testimonial, that social proof, how you can leverage those results to create more energy in your business. And then that then makes the sales easier and easier and easier, where then rather than you chasing clients, they actually turn around and start chasing you. Once you've built that brand, once you've got that expert status, you've become that go-to person, you become credible, you become trusted as a coach and as a person that can deliver results. It gets easier and easier to sell. So there's that element. Absolutely, come join me in those masterclasses if you want to talk about that. But what I'm talking about is how you continue to keep that motivation going so that you can really compound your success. Because what happened with her was, obviously, once we'd done these steps, The next month then became a 10K month. It then became a 10K week, and now her 10K day is like right around the corner. It's so easy. It's so possible because we've done all of the work, yes, strategically, but also energetically, but also mindset. So now that she can see it's possible, now that she's got all of the reasons as to why, it's easy to then sustain it from here. But this is where most people go wrong. They get their quick wins. They have the initial desire and motivation to do something incredible. They prove to themselves what's possible. But now we move out of survival mode, and suddenly there's no desire as much. And this is what I see as a money mindset coach. Once women get past a certain point of income, it's no longer a desire for them because their basic needs are met. They're no longer in fight or flight or focusing on survival. The desire isn't enough. And definitely when I was in LA last year and I was talking with the women that were, hitting 7 figures, 8 figures in their business, where they were struggling was the motivation to continue to grow and hit the next level of income because they didn't need it. Money was no longer a thing. They had so much money that it was like, yeah, I could put more money into investments, I guess. I could, maybe buy another car or another property or another thing. But actually, I'm not that bothered. And that's where people then fall down, because where they can't keep the motivation for continued growth going, they then start self-sabotaging. They then start feeling overwhelmed. They're not bothered, like they just, and then essentially it becomes this downward spiral. And I've definitely been at places in business before I did this work where I had the same. It was like, well, I've got more money than I know what to do with, so I'm good. Like, I'm just going to take a day off work. I'm just going to mentally check out over here. I'm just gonna, like, fuck it. Like, I don't need to be everywhere doing all the things that I did at the beginning. Suddenly I don't want to continue doing because the desire isn't there as much. So where you need to really start to self-regulate so that you don't start becoming, self-sabotaging, and you don't start losing that energy and the momentum and all of the great things that you did at the beginning, because it takes 80% of the fuel to get a plane off the ground. But then once you're there, like, it's only 20% to get it to your journey. But then what happens when you get to that journey? How do you continue to grow that motivation? And this is what I see with women a lot when you hit those incredible highs in your business, 100K months, fantastic launches, incredible, like, we get into like such fight and flight and manic energy where we are like just so focused on the task. It's like once it's then done, there's this real moment of kind of like energetic letdown where it's like, well, I kind of did the thing, so now what? All of our identity, our energy, our focus, our drive has been like geared into hitting that milestone, that thing. But now what? It's like, oh, okay. And do you know what was really interesting for me was I read Stephen Bartlett's book, and he said the same in terms of, I know around our hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, once you hit your basic human needs for survival, it's very difficult to continue that energy and that momentum and that party going. And he said the same thing. He found more satisfaction and got more joy when he found £10 down the back of the sofa as a struggling student, because that represented like his ability to eat food that day, to when he sold his business and had like millions in bank, because he was like, okay. And I've seen that time and time again, but it's almost becomes to our detriment as women, that either we lack the motivation to even get off the ground and see what it is that we're possible, because we've been conditioned that feeling uncomfortable is such a bad thing. Our brain is always moving towards pleasure and away from pain. So anything that feels uncomfortable, overwhelming, hard work, outside of our remit of even possibility, then we mentally check out and don't even try. Or we do these great things, we're in that like struggling mode, getting something done through real push energy, that then we allow ourselves to coast and almost self-sabotage once we've hit it, and then we never really hit that again. So I want to take you through some really practical steps that I'll obviously weave in with my client's story. But essentially, yes, there was loads of strategy once we'd got her mindset off the ground and got her to see what was possible and tick off those milestones. The energy and the momentum from there is going to carry her forwards. We've done very conscious work to continue to recalibrate at every step so that she can continue to grow and grow and grow and not fall back. But also it's motivation theory in its finest as well. So what I would say is, if you are thinking right now, I know that I'm meant for more, I've got this inner knowing, this desire, this flame, this fire in my belly, but perhaps maybe you're setting your goals too high, because don't forget, as women, we also have a greater sense of risk. So if we and this is why we are such great investors, and why it really makes me sad that we struggle, again, a whole other topic. But as women, we are conditioned to be quiet, to be nice girls, to play small, not to play with the boys. And this is why men do so well in investments, because they're bold investors, they take bold action. But women, we're actually more considered and better at analyzing risk. So actually we're better investors, because we're all about the sustainability and the long term success. But obviously everything has told us that we shouldn't be doing that. So essentially right now, if you are thinking, I want 100K a year, and you've never done it before, we need to really lean into the desire of that goal. Or maybe you've got some level of success in your business, but you're not motivated to hit the next level right now. We need to create an overwhelming sense of desire for that next level goal. And guess what? If you haven't had the money, it will be that initially. But if you've had the money, it won't be that anymore. It's no longer a motivator to you. So let's just call it out. It's got to be something that you've got. This is where having a stronger sense of why and a bigger mission and purpose for your business, but also for life and for monetary goals, is so powerful. You've got to get that bigger, like, what is this going to mean if I hit this goal? Actually, what is really going to drive me forwards? And this is why I think it's got to be about the collective. It's got to be about more than ourselves. It's got to be about our community. It's got to be about our kids, legacies. Like, that's why I love to work with women who are looking for that legacy, that generational wealth, that bigger impact in the world. If you are coming to me and saying, I just want to have an Amazon business because I want to have money, guess what? I'm probably not the coach for you, because that doesn't excite me as a coach, let alone you. And unless you're really the kind of person that's driven by the data and the numbers, that really is not very exciting to me. You've got to have the desire, and it's got to be overwhelming, and it's going to be connected to something that is bigger than it is right now. You've also got to have a sense of pain and pleasure, in the sense that this is why I always get my clients to do their future self work. They've got to have a goal and a vision of something that is so, like, just could bring you to tears. Future self, they've got that. It becomes very easy when it comes to actions and boundaries, because they want to move away from where they are right now. In context, when they look at what they could have, it's so pleasurable. Like, they have to move towards that and away from where they are right now. So that's why doing that future self work is so powerful. I've got an incredible free hypnosis audio. I would love for you, I'll put it on the stories today, but I'd love for you to go away and do that work, so that you've got that really compelling vision. But also, it's about making the journey fun. Everything I do is fun. Even just writing my book this year, I know what I'm like. I was that girl that would always leave my homework to the last possible moment. I work better under pressure when I've got the fear of getting in trouble, and it's so painful to me that would light a fire at my ass, and I'd be doing it literally the night before. I don't want to do that this time with my book. I want it to be a process that has layers, so it's getting out of my natural comfort zone of working and the way that my energy type typically works. So I've built a community around it. I've made it fun. I've booked a ticket to LA so that I can write it while that I'm there. I'm anchoring in so many incredible fun experiences along the way, so that I can make the process fun. This is why when I work with a client, I'm never going to give them strategies that they feel like pulling teeth, because they're not going to continue with it. It's always about, right, what do I do best? What feels fun to me? What feels easy to me? And how do I do more of that to get the same result? How do I not do the things that I don't want to do? So you've got to be really strategic about that. Again, teach this in my masterclass about identifying your zone of genius and about leveraging teams and automations and other things so that you don't have to do the things that you want to do. It's then about reverse engineering the steps and creating a ladder of probability so that you can see that it's even possible that you could do this thing. So that's why goal setting and reverse engineering and breaking it down into actionable steps is so possible. But also, I think there's another step around acclimatizing to that next level. So creating the mini goals so that you can decompress, so that you can recalibrate and make this your new level of normal, so that you're never going to go below that. And I really think that is where you then start to create that sustainable success, because now that becomes your stepping point. You know, you can now, that will never be where you go below. That's why your wealth thermostat is so important. And then you can now use that as your springboard for the next goal, for the next goal. If you're trying to go from 0 to 100K, there's so much wrong with that. It's entirely possible. I believe in quantum leaps, but there's so many things that you need to get energetically in place first to really set yourself up for success. Because even if you get that win, it's an artificial win, it's a false high. Can you replicate it? Is it sustainable? Did you go so far out of your comfort zone and pain that you wouldn't want to replicate it again anyway? You know, and there's so much that I could talk about around that. So as I'm speaking and getting into flow, I'm actually realizing I could probably do a series on this, so maybe I will. But essentially, once you've done that, once you've started to get that energy, you started to build that trust and authority with yourself, once you've seen what is possible, you can then create more energy and momentum to then go on and do that next level big goal. Because action and seeing those results, so taking action in the first place that feels practical, that feels possible, that feels like a bit of a stretch but feels good, because you're moving towards something that ultimately you want. Yet then when you start to see results because you've taken that action, because inevitably if you're taking different action from action than you're already used to taking, you're going to see incredible results. That then gives you more confidence to take the next level results. And it's about like constantly living to those edges and reframing what feeling uncomfortable means to you. For me, it feels exciting. It means like, oh my God, if I'm doing something that absolutely fucking terrifies me, then I'm exactly doing the right thing, because that means that I'm continually pushing the boundaries of what feels comfortable, what feels possible. It means I'm always growing and I'm always getting outside of my comfort zone. I'm always then giving myself an opportunity to master something new, which then just adds to my toolkit of confidence and trust in myself that actually whatever happens, it will be fine. People always die when they're like, oh my God, we're like literally LA. I haven't even thought about what I'm going to pack, what I'm going to do. Like half of the stuff I still need to do. And do you know what? I'll probably do it the day before because I'm okay. I like, as in, and this is actually a sign of a high performance woman, because I've got so much trust in myself that because I've proven it time and time again, I'll figure it out. I'll be fine. Even if something goes wrong, I'll be fine. Like I can always find a workaround. And that only comes from continually living in my edges and allowing myself that grace to grow into the next level version of me. Because like I say, once you start to compound that action that you're taking and therefore then the results that you're seeing, that just continues to build the motivation and the energy and the momentum towards your next level goals. So I hope that you have enjoyed that episode today. That was definitely a lot longer than I intended it to be. There is so much more that I can talk about. So if you've enjoyed it, let me know what maybe some of the takeaways are for you in the comments below. But that is essentially how you stack success. That is how you create some success, and then you build momentum and you create next level quantum leaps from there. And how it is possible for you to then reverse engineer those steps for you too, if you are looking for this year to be a year of incredible growth.